Mamie belle, la moustache et la capucha. Sito patamilo, milata katiki punetika. Sito patamilo, milata katiki punetika. Sito patamilo, milata katiki punetika. Sito patamilo, milata katiki takatiki. Sito patamilo, milata katiki punetika. Sito patamilo, milata katiki punetika. Sito patamilo, milata katiki punetika. Mamie belle, la moustache et la capucha.
What's going on? This is your man John Fortune, your host of the Frustrated Fan Sports Show. And today, y'all normally know that this is normally my coach's evaluation show, but I felt the need to do something different this year because there's a lot of stuff that goes on, and I know I've been the person who's been banging the drum about firing Ron and everything like that. And there are things that everybody needs to understand. And understand this is something that is really bad. So today's video is my first ever front office evaluation. And I'm going to just focus on the three guys, Ron Rivera, Marty Hurney, and Martin Mayhew, and how even their disagreements and lack of communication and lack of being on the same side has hindered us when it comes to everything that's going on. So first, I'm gonna just talk about them as a whole. So we're gonna start with Ron. We're gonna start where this front office has basically made a complete snafu of us as an organization. Ron has been terrible as a front office man. I mean, again, I remember year one, I told y'all, Ron came in with the whole thing of the contradictory communication. You know, every time you turn around, Ron was the inconsistent messaging. Ron constantly had the inconsistent messaging. No matter what was going on, no matter what was happening, no matter what was being said, Ron consistently had inconsistent messaging. And every time you turn around, even now to this day, with the whole I should have started Sam Howell earlier thing, Sam Howell was not going to get you into the playoffs. Sam Howell was not going to get you into the playoff hunt. And anybody who says otherwise, they're fooling themselves. Sam Howell was not going to get you into the playoff hunt. Taylor Heinicke understood the offense, knew the offense, and again, in spite of the fact that Scott Turner was a bad play caller, Taylor was able to make things happen. So again, there's no way Sam Howell would have worked in this system while Scott Turner was here. Starting him early would have done nothing for Sam Howell and would have done nothing for Washington. Period. He needed to bake. And now all of a sudden, it goes from him needing to bake to now all of a sudden, I should have started him earlier. See, and what would have happened if Sam Howell would have faltered and you went back to Carson Wentz? Because that's what you would have done, because that's what you did with Taylor. If Sam Howell would have sat up there and started to be faulty, the first thing you would have done was went back to Carson Wentz. And instead of getting Carson Wentz in the Cleveland game, we might have gotten Carson Wentz second Giants game. We would have gotten Carson Wentz 49ers game. But this goes back to why I constantly say Ron should be fired, along with the front office. Martin Mayhew didn't do anything that has blown our wigs off. Again, even him has come up with an inconsistent message that doesn't even make sense for people who are smart enough to understand football and drafting. You didn't take an offensive lineman in the early rounds. Well, the guy we wanted, we tried to trade up for him, but he was gone and nobody was trying to trade with us. Cody Mauch went the pick right after that. And I have a great Cody Mauch story that I'm going to give to y'all in another video because I really have to put that out there. But I have a great Cody Mauch story. Cody Mauch went right after Quan Martin. Not only that, you still had John Michael Schmidt on the board. You had Osiris Torrance on the board. You had Tyler Steen on the board. And you had Juice Scruggs still on the board. But instead of taking any one of those guys, you sit up there and you end up taking a defensive back that even on your own draft board was a 3rd round pick. You telling me that your front office, you telling me that the front office as a whole couldn't figure out another offensive lineman when Steve Avila was gone? You telling me John Michael Schmidt wasn't the guy? You telling me Tyler Steen wasn't the guy? Cody Mock wasn't the guy? Juice Scruggs wasn't the guy? You telling me none of those guys were guys? Are you kidding me? There's so many things that you can sit up here and say that, again, goes back to what I said before. This front office did a poor job in drafting this year. Very poor. You knew you needed offensive linemen. You knew that. And you still chose to not go after the guys that were still available on the board. And your answer to the question of why didn't you draft the offensive lineman is, well, the guy we wanted, Steve Avila, was already gone. Then guess what? Then find the next offensive lineman that is just as good. Again, Cody Mock is getting ready to start in Tampa Bay. John Michael Schmidt might be the starting center with the Giants. Tyler Steen, I think he's working well. Juice Scruggs is down there in Houston. Juice Scruggs was so good that they felt the need to trade Kenyon Green, who, by the way, was a guy that Martin Mayhew wanted. And again, the fact that Martin Mayhew and Ron Rivera and Martin Hurney weren't all on the same page, that they, don't get me wrong, not mad that they took Jahan Dotson. But again, if you telling me that one guy is saying we should take an offensive lineman and the other 2 guys are saying let's take the wide receiver, there's a massive disconnect there. And y'all telling me that these are the guys that we want to keep as front office people? Ron Rivera, Martin Mayhew, and Marty Hurney? Understand, here's another aspect to all this. Do y'all know that there's a massive possibility that Ron will not have anyone from his 2020 draft, his inaugural draft with Washington? He may not have no one from that draft on this team next year. That is what Josh Harris is going to have to deal with. Just to give you guys an idea of that 2020 draft, let me break it down for you. Chase Young went number 1. Chase Young was the first pick. In the 3rd round, they took Antonio Gibson. 2 guys that could be gone. Sadiq Charles in the 4th round, again, could be gone. AGG, already gone. Keith Ishmael, already gone. Then you talk about Khaleke Hudson, who just is now starting to develop, which I'm going to save that for the defensive coach's evaluation. I'm not going to go in deep into that. You got Cam Curl in the 7th round. And then you got James Smith-Williams in the 7th round. That's their entire 2020 draft. And there's a possibility that no one from that draft, by the way, a lot of the guys that's still on this team are massive contributors. Massive contributors to this team right now. Chase Young is a massive contributor along with James Smith-Williams. So you're talking about Chase Young and James Smith-Williams, both from that draft, possibly gone. Then you're talking about Cam Curl could be gone. Then you talk about if Khaleke Hudson even comes close to playing as well as he should be, or how they're talking about him playing, again, he could be gone. Then you talk about Sadiq Charles. There's a chance that he might for once actually work out and he might not have an injury season this year. Guess what? If he plays well, You're talking about he's a free agent. Then Antonio Gibson, a multi-purpose back. He may be gone. Understand this. This is the scenario that Ron created. That Martin Mayhew created, that Marty Hurney created. They created an environment where the new ownership will have to deal with all these guys being free agents in his first real year of ownership. Think about that. Do you think that as an owner, think of yourself as an owner. Think of yourself as a guy. Do you really think you want to go through all this in free agency? Also, to add to that, Montez Sweat and Kendall Fuller. That's what Josh Harris has to deal with in his first year of ownership. And these are the reasons that Ron should be fired. Ron should not be here. I don't even care. And this is why I say all the time, I don't care what he goes. I don't care if the team goes 12 and whatever, 12 and 5. I don't care if the team wins 13 games. I don't care if the team wins 14 games. I don't care if the team goes undamn defeated. Ron should still be fired. Because understand this, if the team does make a deep playoff run, a lot of the guys from his 2020 draft that are major contributors will not be on this team because they will all be paid. It amazes me so much at how so many people defend Ron. It amazes me so much at how every time we turn around, they talk about, oh, what they did in the draft and the guys that they drafted. But guess what? If you ain't keeping none of your guys, how does it even make any sense? Chase Young, if Ron stays here, Chase Young is definitely out of here. We don't even know how Montez Sweat really feels about the whole thing too, because guess what? Montez Sweat got some criticism as well from Ron. Both of them are free agents. Both of them are free agents. Their backups are free agents. One of their backups is James Smith-Williams, another 2020 draft pick. You're talking about, again, we could go through this whole thing, this whole scenario where we don't have anyone from that 2020 draft on this roster next year. And let's just say we do win 13 games. We do win 11 games. We do win 10 games. It was a waste. Because all these guys are not going to be available next year. And let's just say you keep one guy from this draft. One? Come on, y'all. This has been a poor job by this front office. A very poor job by it. Marty Hurney didn't make a difference. Martin Mayhew didn't make a difference. And Ron has been a disaster from year one. Remember, when he first took the job, he said he took the job because of the roster and immediately flipped the roster. And now we're sitting here where we're going into a season with, guess what? Not even a first round pick guy on our offensive line. In fact, none of the guys on our line, if I could think, none of the guys on our offensive line went in the first round. Not one. And there are a lot of teams that have offensive linemen that went in the first round. We don't have one. And see, these are elements that people have to understand when it comes to thinking about this season, thinking about what's happening this season, thinking about everything that's going on. And this particular thing is the worst thing ever. This front office has done this team no justice. I mean, all the things that they've done. I mean, again, do you think that any of these guys should keep their jobs, being as though that their reasoning for not drafting a lineman in the first 2 rounds was because the guy that they wanted went before they picked? And then instead of adjusting and taking another offensive lineman, you take the defensive back that you had a 3rd round grade on in the 2nd round? How does that make any sense? How does that make any sense? So for that, my evaluation of this Washington front office, which I hope will not be here the following year, is an F. This front office has done very poorly in managing player contracts, getting players signed, getting players on board, doing the things that need to be done, keeping solid players, and also, again, inconsistent messaging. And guess what? Their disconnect when it comes to them communicating with each other has also displayed itself when it comes to the draft. So for that, this front office gets an absolute F. I wish I can give them an F minus, but it gets an absolute F. Because at the end of the day, you didn't do anything that made any sense. And here's another little piece of token nugget there. The whole inconsistent messaging again with the whole Eric Bieniemy stuff. If you saw the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl and you felt that you had guys on your team that can do the exact same thing that they did in Kansas City, why did you need that? Why did you need to even interview Anthony Lynn? Why did you need to interview anyone else that did not come from that Kansas City scheme? Why didn't you feel the need to interview only the guys who came from that Andy Reid scheme? No, you interview Anthony Lynn, and I forgot the other guy that they interviewed. But again, how does that make any sense when you said you watched Kansas City and all that? And understand, this man says he follows analytics. If I was an analytics person, I would be pissed off at Ron Rivera, because there's no way in hell analytics is telling him to do the stuff that he's done. Again, this front office, Washington Commanders front office, gets an absolute F, should be fired at the end of the season, because at the end of the day, if I was a new owner, the last thing I want to do is have to deal with all these free agents on my team in my first year ownership. Y'all tell me what y'all think. What would y'all give this front office? Would y'all give the front office an absolute F like I did and have the exact same reasons? Or would you give them another grade? Let me know. Let me know what y'all think. Other than that, this has been your man John Fortune. Like, subscribe, comment. This has been your man John Fortune, and this has been the Frustrated Fan Sports Show.